fellow on the fellow on the fellow. Fellow on the fellow on the fellow.
Yeah. The Real Shop Talk. Just come and take a listen. Some grown men with unbiased and honest opinions, and with no agendas, so you just gotta check it. Talking love and life from a male perspective. We keep it authentic, real, no filter. Leave a comment, be part of the show. We here to give you 5 gentlemen's views about manhood, no doubt. This the show you've been needing, yeah, it's the Real Shop Talk. Let's go.
What's up, everyone? It's your boy Tony Massey. Welcome back. It is episode 1, season 2 of the Real Shop Talk, and we could not come back without celebrating the ladies. I know this is a show about men's perspectives and the minds of men and all this good stuff, but in the words of the Negro poet James Brown, it's a man's world, but it wouldn't be nothing. So we are back. This is season 2. As you can see, we're a little light on the men of the Real Shop Talk, but we do have some ladies who are going to fill in these seats, these empty seats. But those brothers will be back. Don't worry about it. They're off doing their thing. But me and the 2 Tonys are going to hold it down until they return. Speaking of the Tony, go ahead, take yourself off the mic, bro, and introduce yourself.
Hey, everybody. I'm Tony Watts, Tony A. Watts on Instagram, Tony A. Watts on. I jump back on Twitter. I'm acting a fool on there. So go check me out. And same thing on TikTok. So we're about to get into some things. I also host Triumphant TV from Triumphant Media Group. It's a lot of things going on, but we're running just a tad bit behind today. So let's get into introducing the ladies and let's figure out who they are and what they do and get into this conversation today.
All right, let's do that. So we will start to my left. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us who you are. Tell us how we can find you on social media.
I think that's me. So
yes, Elizabeth.
So my name's Elizabeth.
Yeah, I was thinking too. I'm like,
I'm Elizabeth. I'm an actor and I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner. I'm based out of Massachusetts, but also back and forth between Massachusetts and Florida. I'm also a writer and a poet. You can find me on Instagram at Elizabeth Ann Hilton. Very easy. Hilton is spelled with a Y, not like the hotel.
A nurse practitioner, writer, actor, poet. Wow. I tell you, Tony, every time we bring women on the platform and we ask them to introduce themselves, I feel so inadequate. Like, what am I doing with my life? Like, I don't do enough. All right. Geneva, please introduce yourself. Same thing. Tell us who you are, what you do, and of course, where we can find you on social media.
Sure. Well, that's a hard act to follow, Elizabeth, but I'm Geneva Walker. I am a licensed therapist here in Texas. I currently work at Southwestern University in Georgetown, Texas. I am a widowed mom of 3 young men, ages 10, 14, and almost 17. And if that's not enough, then I don't know what else is. That keeps me busy. And on social media, I can be found at My Victorious Walk. At My Victorious Walk and Facebook, Geneva Walker.
And it looks like she's dipping in and out, so I'm going to catch her when she comes back in.
I just hit her and told her to probably reboot her system because sometimes if you have a lot of things open, it's hard to stay in. So she'll be back.
Okay, cool. So we'll get started, and when she comes in, we'll pause and go ahead and give her the opportunity to introduce herself. So what you talk about during during our ladies' night, we talk about. Okay, there she is. All right,
I'm so
Claudia,
sorry.
go ahead.
I'm having
no worries.
technical difficulties. It keeps dropping me, and I have to keep going.
No worries.
Well, I work in a school. I'm a lunch lady in Harlem on 105th. But I do acting, modeling, dancing. You can find me on TikTok at JAN071974. Born and raised in Hell's Kitchen, still here in Grandma's apartment. And I'm from Argentina, my mama's side, Colombian, and I have a almost 31-year-old married daughter.
Wow. The lunch lady. I had a
The
crush on my
lunch
lunch
lady.
lady. I had a crush on my lunch lady in high
It
school. I
doesn't look
swear
this nice.
she used to give me extra mashed potatoes. I don't know if that's true or not, but I
I
used
always feed them more.
to. All right. So, of course, as always, we have a distinguished panel of guests. Whenever we do ladies' night, we usually do trending topics. And of course, we took the month of June off, and a lot has happened since then. I would like to start before we play any videos. I want to get just right into it. I would like to start with Roe versus Wade, and I'm not interested necessarily in your opinion about the decision. I'm more interested in how your opinion about how a law that was enacted 40 years ago, you know, a right more so that was protected 40 years ago, now has been completely dismantled. And be clear, you know, for people who are saying this, abortion is not illegal. It's just not protected federally, meaning that each state can now decide the legality of abortion. So my home state in Texas, they've decided can't have an abortion there. But the state that I'm living in now, California, not only can you still get an abortion here, the governor's made it clear if you need an abortion, you can come here to get one. We'll be a place where you can have one. So what I like to get from you ladies is how do you feel about the overturning? You don't have to give me your political opinion because that's private, unless you want to. And what's the impact that you feel it's going to have socially, especially since this was a protected right for 40 years? Anyone can jump in.
Well, this is devastating. It was absolutely devastating, and I was close to tears when I saw that the decision came out. We know that this is going to affect disproportionately underprivileged women and women of color. Historically, outlawing abortion has done that, and so this is just kind of going to be another repeat of what we saw in the past. Because if you are, a white female, if you are somebody of means, you can still hire your private doctor to give you an abortion comfortably in your own home or wherever that may be. We know this is not going to impact the wealthy. This is not going to, it's going to disproportionately impact women of color and underprivileged women. And, aside from that, it's just absolutely heartbreaking and disgusting to me that in 2022, we're going backwards and women are losing the rights to our own bodies, our autonomy. Like it's insane. And it's scary because, as everyone said, we don't know what's next. What else are they going to come for next? If something so simple and as basic as being able to control your own body and your own reproduction, your own organs, if that can be stripped away, then what are they coming for next? So just heartbreaking for me.
Yeah, I agree. It feels like a movie, like a bad horror movie. One of those things where you just feel like your autonomy, your rights are being stripped away, a huge step backwards. And it's scary because like Elizabeth just said, what's next? I mean, where are we, where are we going to lose our privileges? Where are we going to lose our safety or protection? And so it does make you feel like, where can I go? I'm looking at Canada. I'm looking at Switzerland. Like, do I need to go somewhere where I can protect myself and my family? It just makes you feel like you're just out there when the government, you see it in the movies. You see these things where you're just like, it could never happen in real life, but here it is happening today. Very disconcerting.
And I'm angry. Quite frankly, I'm really, 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 really angry that, something like this.
Where would you place your anger beyond the situation? I mean, do you feel like there's someone out there to blame?
Well, I think, Congress really needs to step up and do something about the Supreme Court. We need to have more Supreme Court justices. And so, that's where, the focus needs to be. We need to change this because the way that it is, I think it's like 9 now, we're in danger. And, it's not set how many there can be. Congress sets that. So, my anger is with our political system and how little we're doing to protect, people's rights.
It's just the trickle down from the prior presidency of how he left things, the condition he left things in, and we're still suffering. I'm angry too.
Absolutely. Claudia, you want to chime in on this?
Yeah, for me, it's a big deal. I mean, thank God I'm in New York City. Thank God for New York. I love my New York. So I'm just gonna go back into a story of a friend of mine raped by her uncle. And if it wasn't for an abortion, her whole life would have been destroyed. And it's not fair. What's going on around this world, it's like we're going backwards instead of going forward. Women have worked so hard, Latino, Black women, unprivileged women, to get where we are, and they're shutting us down. They're trying to take us back to, I don't know, the 1820s.
We lost her. And that, but the story she was telling is the story that I think is so compelling, because the very people who are, and again, the right, there's no reason to discuss the right and wrong of it. And the reason I say that is because however you feel about abortion, to me, is the same with gay marriage. Your feelings about it should not dictate doctrine about it, right? The way I feel about something should not be subject to law. It should, my feelings should not be the foundation for a law, because they're my feelings. So if I don't believe in abortion, or if I don't believe in gay marriage, or whatever the case may be, then don't get involved in a gay marriage and don't have an abortion. It's as simple as that. But to infringe upon other people's rights to exercise their beliefs, to me, doesn't make sense, especially since the people who are pushing this are the very people who say they want limited government. They don't want the government in their pocket. They don't want the government in their business. They don't want the government here, there, and everywhere. But when it comes to you, people of color, people without means, people who are subjected to, unfairly, the laws of the land, and they're not applied fairly, we can let the government govern you, and all that good stuff.
And where is the separation of church and state, right? Why are somebody else's religious views being imposed on millions of women? How is that fair? How is that right?
And it goes beyond just abortion. And all of y'all talked about this. It goes to the autonomy of a woman's body, which historically has never really been safe, right? There was a time in this country not too long ago where it was not considered rape if a husband forced his wife to have sex.
Very true.
The idea that your body no longer belongs to you, you know what I'm saying? You lose that autonomy. You lose that sense of identity and self, that safeness where you can be safe within yourself, is just mind-blowing to me.
And you got to think about the impact of the mental health part of it too, right? And I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
You know what I'm saying? The mental health aspect of a woman with no choices. What does she do? Something, she's raped, or she just has sex and gets pregnant and she's not ready. She has no choices, and what that does to her.
And Love Tucker brought up the I don't know if you guys heard the story of the 10-year-old girl who was impregnated. and couldn't get an abortion in her home state and had to go to Indiana.
My God.
I mean, the idea that, and I think what happens is it's the same thing with the crack mom. You know what I mean? This manufactured identity, this person that doesn't exist, that they base all this on, right? There was no welfare mom or crack mom or whatever she was in the 80s that they built legislation around this manufactured person. D.L. Hughley said it best. I will never forget this quote: "The most dangerous place for Black people to be is in the imaginations of white people," because that's where all this comes from. They're creating this person that doesn't exist, this woman who's using abortion as birth control. You know what I mean? On a wide scale. When the reality is that it is a traumatic event, and it's even more traumatic if you don't have services associated with it. If you have to, I mean, the idea that you have to travel. First of all, you have to find out when you're pregnant. And God forbid you have like endometriosis or something like that, where you always have irregular periods. So you can't, your period isn't, doesn't come on time every month. So if you miss a period, it's not a big deal for you because you miss periods all the time. And then you find out you're pregnant. Now you have to book a plane ticket. First you have to find a doctor, then you have to book a plane ticket, then you get an opening. And by this time you could be outside the window for an abortion. But no one's thinking about that. And so what I said was, if we're going to push the issue that life starts at conception, then I think that child support should start at conception. I think that life insurance should start at conception. Once you conceive, I think you should be able to get a fetus a policy. And God forbid you miscarry, insurance companies should have to pay that out. Well, I think if your dependent status, if you're on social programs, like for me, I'm retired military. If once I conceive, I should be able to add that dependent to my retirement and my my disability payments, and thereby increasing them. Let's keep going then.
Yeah,
and that's a good idea.
That's when life starts.
I think I saw in Texas the other day, there was a woman who, was pulled over for using the HOV lane. And then the police officer said, "How many people are in your car?" And she's like, "Well, 2." And he's like, "Where's the other person?" And she's right here, because she was like 32 weeks pregnant. And he still ticketed her. But, how, hypocritical if we are seeing this as a license, she should use the HOV lane.
It says high occupancy vehicle. It doesn't say every seat has to be filled. You know what I mean? So the occupancy of that vehicle is 2 people if we're going by the rules. But that's the thing. We have to use that logic against the people who are trying to push that agenda and take away the autonomy of women.
And I think
so. Real quick, let me just jump in here real fast. It's the overturning of abortion is not about abortion. It's about control of laws. Because the wording for overturning it was not in the original Constitution. I have a problem with that. I have a problem with that because my freedom was not in the original Constitution. The right to vote wasn't in the original Constitution. So when we listen to the wording, right, we get confused of what really is going on here. So if I can turn back gay marriage because it wasn't in the original Constitution, I can overturn interracial marriage because it wasn't in the original Constitution. And I'm a Christian, so I think sometimes people get too caught up in our beliefs to look outside and what's really going on. And that's why the Conservative Party, who their only Christian value for life, for being pro-life, is that thing that's in the womb. Because if you believed in pro-life, there wouldn't be starving children. There wouldn't be homeless people. There wouldn't be people that's dying for drug addicts and everything else. You would take care of those people. Pro-life is from conception to death. Pro-life is not, okay, I stopped you from having an abortion, now you're on your own to raise the child, right? So, but if we look at the abortion statistics, they have been going down since 98. In the 90s, there was 1 million abortions a year. Now the abortions is down to 700,000. You know why? Because Obama came in, he made care for people who didn't have care. So I keep telling people, if you can't go to an abortion clinic and convince somebody not to have an abortion without a alternative way for them to go. If you want the life, then tell them, I will take the child. I will help you raise the child. When you put a woman in a situation to have an abortion, right, I think the man should be involved as well. She didn't have the child by herself, right? When they brought the adulterous woman to Jesus, they didn't bring the man they caught her with. They said, we caught her in the act. The man wasn't there. So where's the man now when I'm making this decision, right? People go, oh well, she has to make a choice. Fine, but she didn't conceive alone. So there has to be a broad sense of responsibility for everybody across the board. So I think that going back to what my point is, we got to be very careful of why the law is being overturned and not so zealous over it's a Christian thing, right? Because we're looking at this life. Let's look at why they're overturning it and the language they're using to overturn it, and just to see if they're just trying to use the belief in Christianity as a means to get your vote. I think that's what we have to be extremely careful about.
Yeah, that too. And I think what you said about, they're claiming that the 14th Amendment doesn't protect the right to abortion. What else are they going to say that it doesn't protect? And this is very reminiscent of a few things. It's very reminiscent of, the time when women were just property of their men, right? Of their husbands. Like it's making me feel like women are going back to being seen like the property of somebody. It's very reminiscent of slavery, where enslaved women were forced to carry pregnancies to provide more workers, right? This is very reminiscent. So it's scary. It is. So, and it reminds me too of even the way we look at the Bible. There's so much disagreement about how we interpret the Bible. And now we're starting to do the same thing with our basic rights in the amendments. And so slavery was justified with the Bible, wrongfully so. But what else are we going to look at the 14th Amendment and say this doesn't protect?
I totally agree. I think that when we vote and we go to the ballot box and we make a decision about how we feel about whether something should go into law or not, it's easy to dismiss something that you're not impacted by. And very famously, a lot of politicians have changed their feelings about, or not just their feelings, but their zeal and their effort towards certain issues, because now they've become impacted by it. Dick Cheney was adamant about being against gay marriage. He does not feel that people who are homosexual should get married until his daughter came out. Then he pivoted, did 180 degrees. So why can't we have the same compassion for strangers and people who we are not impacted by as we do people in my family and our families and our friends? Because the reality is that, again, how does it impact you? Even if it's wrong, in your opinion, what is the impact that it has on you? It's like this idea that, I don't want my kids introduced to homosexuality and sex and all this other stuff. But these are the same people who say things to their kids like, how many boyfriends do you have? Or how many girlfriends do you have? We sexualize children all the time. But it's okay if it's heteronormative, cisgendered, whatever the case may be. But once it starts to shift from that, then all of a sudden everyone's got a problem. And I'm not suggesting that we all just embrace everyone's truth. I'm just saying allow me to have my truth without infringing upon it. You know, I'm not a big gun person. I own a gun, but I'm not one of these people that feel like you should own 50 guns. But I don't think you should take away a person's right to own a gun. I do think that the person needs to understand the responsibility associated with it. And we should be very selective about who should be able to own a gun. But I don't believe in taking away everyone's gun. I think that's crazy. But that's because it's not going to impact me. You know what I'm saying? But if there's somebody who out there who has some mental issues or whatever the case may be, then yeah, that's different. If you have the ability to impact other people, then yeah, let's talk about it. But go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, like, that lack of empathy, I think it's important to talk about where some of that comes from, because I do think some of that comes from white supremacy and the white male patriarchy, and this idea that these white men, Christian or not, think that they know what's better for women, think that they know what's better for people of color, think that they know what's better for people in poverty because of their sense of superiority and their sense of supremacy, which is still, you know, perpetuated in politics.
And it's amazing that at this point we're still arguing the validity of white male patriarchy. The idea that this is something that someone made up is crazy to me. We have a plethora of irrefutable evidence of a white male patriarchy in this country, but yet there are people who will say it doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. And they'll give the most ridiculous reasons why, but still, I mean, at this point, fiction is irrelevant. Like I made a post the other day about that. I was like, we don't need to reference The Handmaid's Tale. Just reference slavery. It's the same damn thing. You know, Black women were basically handmaids. That's what they were. They were not allowed to love and create families of their own. They were baby machines. You know, they were seen for their uterus and all that. All right, let's pivot. This is way too heavy. Let's pivot to the differences in how men and women communicate. There's a great video going around where, and I'm going to show the video here in a second. But there's a great video going around that really illustrates the difference in how men and women communicate. And I want to show it to you real quick. Let me see. I haven't done this in so long.
He'll say he had lunch or whatever. He had a lunch meeting, and I'm like, "Oh, you with Adam or with someone else?" Or I'll say like, "With Adam or with such and such," and he'll be like, "Neither."
And then he don't say nothing else. You know I want to know. You know I want to know. And you're bright enough to understand that I want to know who you sat and broke bread with.
Hold on.
You absolutely.
So,
sure.
So okay, this is what I'm saying though. If you want to know who I had lunch with, say, who did you have lunch with? If the question asked is, did you have lunch with Adam or Tony? Neither is the answer.
But if you know that I want to know who, and I thought it was Adam or so-and-so.
I would know that if you said, who did you have lunch with?
But that's what I'm asking. That's absolutely what I'm asking.
But you're not.
That's
not what you asked.
Totally. It's insane. It's insane. It's amazing.
No, you don't get that. That's not the question that you asked.
That's not the question that you
asked.
Thank you.
In your head, the question. Hold on. No. The question in your head does not equal the question that comes out of your mouth.
But
guys,
it's the same.
Guys, how can we grow from this? We want to know as much as you can tell me.
I absolutely love that video because it is a perfect illustration of how different, like even with my wife and I don't give details unless they're solicited. My wife gives details whether they're solicited or not. Even if those details send us down a road that takes us away from the actual topic of the story. So in the video, if you aren't able to hear it or whatever, the idea is, the question was, did you have lunch with Adam or Tony? The answer to the question was neither. I didn't have lunch with Adam or Tony. The inference that was missed was, well, who did you have lunch with? And the women were saying, it's implied. It's in the question. I want to know who you had lunch with. And the men are saying, no, there is no implication because you specifically asked me if I had lunch with Adam or Tony. But that once that list is exhausted, I'm not required to now volunteer information. I thought you wanted to know if Adam or Tony were at lunch with me. What say you, ladies?
Is it very true that men are black and white and women are more gray? Like, I feel like that's where it stems from.
I think men are black and white and women are chartreuse. Salmon.
But I think that was clear communication on both fronts. It's like, you're going to ask a question. If the question isn't answered, you ask a more direct question. Because I've learned a long time ago when I was married that I have to ask exactly what I want the answer to. So if and it's not even being passive aggressive, because I have had my moments of passive aggression in my life. And I learned that nobody wins with passive aggressive. So you have to be direct with your questioning. And especially when it's involved with a significant other, you have to be very, very direct. And so I think men don't just, and it doesn't seem like y'all read between the lines. Y'all don't care to read between the lines. And that's frustrating for us because what you said, when you're not answering the question of the two men that we asked, then we like, is it a female? Is there somebody else that we need to like, who are we? Why aren't you telling me? And so it's like, we go down that rabbit hole of making up our own story of who you were at lunch with.
Yeah, I think I've learned through my experience with men that nothing is implied. Where is this going? What are you looking for? Mm-hmm. What does this mean? You have to literally ask everything. So that video just resonated with me because I've definitely learned that with men, nothing seems to be implied. So, and as somebody who does go down that rabbit hole and will come up with the worst case, most ridiculous scenario, I rather just ask directly and get my answer than contemplate and try to figure it out. But yeah.
Thank you. I just had this conversation with a very, very good friend of mine. And she was like, but why don't you just do it? And I was like, because there's times where you're not asking what you need. So if you ask me a direct question, then I go out with Tony and neither was there. And I didn't go with either one of them. If you walk away in your head going, he's hiding stuff, I'm answering your question. But there are times when you can be engaged in a conversation and you will ask an obscure question and I will give you the information you're looking for. So it's depending on how the conversation is flowing. If you just come out and say, were you blah, 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 blah? No, I didn't do that. But you said, then I go, okay, but what are you looking for? So if he had answered, who did you have lunch with? Myself and the people that were in the restaurant. Like what are you looking for? Right? So I think it really depends on where you are in the conversation, because you could be having a dialogue that is all over the place. Like, how was the day? What was going on? Blah, blah, blah. And, oh, you had lunch today with Tony and them? Yeah, they didn't show up, so I met Rob. That's a different thing. That's because it's packed different. So I just appreciate that you two have learned not to just leave it vague. And I like what Elizabeth said, because I tell my friends this all the time. If a man has not cleared what his intentions are, no matter how much fun you're having, you have to ask the question, what are we doing? Oh, I don't want labels. I don't want to disrupt the apple cart. So don't call me in 6 months when you catch him with 4 or 5 other girls. You didn't define what you wanted. You have to find what you want. What are we doing? And if he says, no, it's just you, I would suggest your next question is this going somewhere, or is it just me for now?
Mm-hmm.
because things change. And we must have constant communication of changes. So I'll land my plane there.
Yeah, and I think women, our partners are responsible for meeting our needs, but we are responsible for making sure that we make our needs known and what we need to feel at ease, to feel less anxious, to feel, men are not mind readers. So if you need, when you ask your partner, who did you have lunch with? Was it Tony or Adam? And you need them to tell you specifically who, then that's a conversation you need to have. Like, we have to have our own accountability and responsibility for making sure that we're expressing what needs that we need to be met by our partners.
My mother used to do this to me. I would come home from school and she would say, is there something you need to tell me? And it was just it was the best open-ended question ever, because of course there's something I need to tell you. I just don't know which of the some things you already know. So if I tell you that I skipped third period, but what you were looking for was, I got caught in the back of the school doing something I wasn't supposed to be doing. Now I'm volunteering information and incriminating myself because I'm answering this horrible open-ended question, But it can be used as a tactic if that's what it's being used for. But I'm really big on, if you want information from me, be very specific. And it isn't because I'm trying to hide something. It's because, I think that men just communicate directly. We don't deal in details. I mean, have you ever heard a man tell a story? The story is going to be very simplistic and very dry and very to the point. And to the point where, if you ever watch an action movie, and I really would like for you guys to, even the audience, to be very attentive the next time you watch a movie that is geared towards men. It's action, it's guns, it's explosions or whatever.
I like those kind of movies.
Okay, well, I mean, geared towards men, not just for men. I'm not suggesting that women don't like those kind of movies. Backtrack. Anybody can like bombs. But one characteristic that those action movies have is a lot of the action happens in the opening scene. Like it starts with something happening, something big, and then we either go backwards to 2 years earlier, and then we go back to that point, or we build upon it. Whereas if you watch movies that are drama based, rom-coms, movies that are marketed towards women, there's a very slow and deliberate buildup. The character is developed the plot and the character is developed very slowly and very succinctly. So by the time you get to the crescendo, everything you need to know. Backstory, what their motivation is, all of these things. And as a writer, I really believe that type of writing can be considered gender-based, because those type of movies, when I watch with I'm like, this is boring. This is stupid. I don't want to watch this anymore. She's like, you got to give it time. Like, we will watch series and she'll be like, you got to give it till about the third or fourth episode, and then it gets really good. Whereas the things I like this show called The Boys on man, first episode, first couple of seconds, it was like, okay, you got me. I'm down like 4 flat tires. But I think it does speak to the way we communicate, because we don't need backstory. When my wife tells a story, my mom is the same way. My sister is the same way. My sister was telling me about a promotion she got. I learned about a coworker who was doing something that we're supposed to do, and they were about to get fired, and she ended up talking to the coworker, and that's how she found out that the position was. I was like, oh my God, I don't care about any of this. Did you get the promotion or not? So as men, let me ask this: as men, should we be looking for the question behind the question, Or is the onus on ladies to, like, I mean, if you guys are going to be more direct and ask what you want to ask, should we take a moment to kind of figure out what is she trying to ask me?
I think you should. I think you should. And I see this in my sons. Okay, I have 3 boys, 10, 14, 16. And it shows up in, Mom, where's the ketchup? I was like, well, did you look in the fridge? Yeah, I didn't see it. I was like, well, did you move the milk out of the way to find it behind? No, it's called the man look. Because y'all don't, so the detail, it's everywhere. The details matter sometimes. So I think it would be good to maybe sometimes, if somebody asks you a question, you can look a little bit deeper into maybe what they're really asking. It could go both ways. I think that's how communication and relationships grow, when you start to do the things that you know needs to be done in the relationship, especially when communication is involved.
Yeah. That is so true. I will not look. I'm not moving anything. This is how I look for stuff.
I don't see it. Can you come get it? And I tell them, I come in there and find it. You give me 10 push-ups if I find it and you couldn't find it.
I know they some strong boys then. Them boys strong.
They strong.
You know, I saw this meme the other day on Instagram, and it was like a picture of a guy in like a robe with a glass of wine. Me when my girlfriend leaves and I'm finishing the series that we started together. There's a lot of men that actually do like romantic movies.
Yeah.
Sure.
No, I love them.
Yeah.
If I could skip the first 3 episodes, that's fine. I want to get to where the breakup or whatever the traumatic event, whatever the crescendo is.
Yeah.
Let's start there, and then I'm in. I'm totally in.
Well, I wonder how much that has to do with, the disservice that we've done to men in society in terms of allowing them to be in touch with their emotions and feel their emotions grow and feel them build, rather than, when everything hits the fan and the soda bottle is shaken up and opened, and that's when they meet their emotions. I wonder how much
backtrack
to do with
that.
That's a great point.
To bring it up. I was going to tell her I appreciate the way she's raising her boys, because that level of think beyond what's in the refrigerator, because you have to look for things, that will also teach them to listen to what's implied, right? Because like what Tony said earlier, is that when his mother came home and asked him the question, do you have something to tell me? Now I have to fish through what is the one thing I can tell her that I will get in the least amount of trouble for. So now my brain is being wired. When you ask a question that's that broad, there's a lot out there that I might have done and I don't know. So we find the least thing, or like Tony said, when Tony watches movies, he wants to get to the point, right? So if my mindset is I just want to get to the point, I'm raised to do that. No matter who I have communications with, I need the point and get out. Because a lot of guys will say, and it's terrible that we do it, is that I think we've talked about this enough, and let's just leave it there. Not understanding that women have a lot more of the process to let it go, right? If we learn that trait earlier, that women need to process things to before they can move on, then we'll have less of, I feel like, less resentment will grow. You don't listen to me. You don't hear what I have to say. And the guy's going, but I heard you, and now I just want to fix it and get it over with. And she's like, no, I don't need you to fix it. I need to be heard.
Yeah.
And by teaching the boys to look at things like that and to look around corners and that push-up thing. I don't want to do push-ups. Next time I'm going to move stuff around the refrigerator. Me as a grown man, I will go into a store, and if I can't find something, I'll go grab a woman and go, listen, you told me it was down this aisle. I think my man eyes are on today. Could you show me exactly where it's at? I will do that because I understand. I'm conditioned to do certain things. Like if I can't find it, I'm like, why would she send me here if it's not here? She said next to the pickles. I'm looking at the pickles. I don't see it. So I would literally bring a woman down the aisle to point out and be like, oh, it's right there. Oh, it's behind the pickles.
10
behind the pickles.
Oh, okay. All right.
It's the refrigerated pickles. It's
right. Refrigerated pickles. That's it.
No, I think that's an excellent point, and it's even how we process things. I used to think that I processed information internally, and that was my process. Like, I need to go off by myself and think about what has happened, and really just, you know, allow it to permeate my mind and just marinate inside my head, and then I can deal with it. And so I've always been the type of guy where if you give me an hour, when I come back, I'll be ready to talk. And what I learned in therapy was what I was doing was avoiding the conversation. And then by the time that hour went by, my emotions were settled, but the problem wasn't. The problem still existed. I still didn't have understanding. I still didn't have, I wasn't at a point of resolution. I was just a point where I was no longer so upset that I could just apologize my way out of it.
Right.
But that's passive aggressive. So when I come back, I say, you know what? I thought about it. This was my fault. I'm very sorry. And we never talk about it.
Right.
And there are unresolved issues that were not my fault, And so what I learned was, not forcing my passions to be subdued, but instead talking my way through it allows me to get information that is not, I don't have access to, because I'm going to fill in the blanks with what I think.
Right.
And I'm telling you, I would make therapy mandatory for Black people if I was ever in charge of anything, because we do ourselves such a great disservice as couples, especially when your sentence starts with, I think you think, or I feel you feel. That's impossible.
Mm-hmm.
It's impossible for you to know what I'm feeling or what I'm thinking unless I tell you I think, I feel. Those are my words, my thoughts, my feelings. To take them from me, process them in your head, and then apply facts to them, make them factual, is unfair.
Right.
Yeah. And so now when I have an argument or a disagreement with my wife, I ask, how do you feel? Or what do you think? As opposed to, I think you think I'm stupid.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you're stupid at all, but that's what I think you think. Well, that's you thinking that you're stupid. Ain't got nothing to do with me.
That's a great point. There's a very similar exercise that I like to do with my couples that are patients that are couples, where I have each one of them write down what I need from the other person and what I think the other person needs from me, and then I have them share them with each other, so that they can understand that just because you think this, unless you talk about it, unless you express it, the other person can guess, but they're not going to know what you actually need, or what, it's just, I think, so that's a great point.
Do you feel, or do you find that people love, their expressions of love match the way they desire love? Meaning, if I say, we talk about the love languages all the time. Well, if I do acts of service for you, that's me saying I love you. But for you, words of affirmation is I love you. Mm-hmm. And so we're both feeling like we're saying I love you, but we're speaking in a language that the other person either doesn't understand or doesn't really, and I think that list is so important, because you could really be under the impression that I'm a great, like I used to say this all the time, I have an English degree. I'm a great communicator. The reality is I'm horrible at communication because I don't always say what I feel, because I allow my brain to process my feelings. And that process is a very painful one. It's like going through something big and into something small. So do you feel, or do you find that people misinterpret love because they think they're giving according to the way they want to receive?
Yep, I do. I think it goes both ways. I think some people can receive it and give it in different ways. And some people expect to receive it the way they give it. And so there can be miscommunication in both regards. I have a friend who, for birthday, she loves to mail gifts to people and make a big deal about everybody's birthday. And then she was really in a sad rut because she's like, nobody does this for my birthday. And then, we had to be like, let's stop and think about the way you give love and other people give love. Just because that's the way you give love and want to receive it, that doesn't mean that's the way everybody else is going to be showing their love for you. So I think it can go both ways. The way you give it can be different than the way you receive. And, there can be like that false expectation that everybody is going to, just because you give it like that your partner's going to give it like that in return, when, like you said, it's not necessarily the same. The way that your partner gives love can be different than the way you give love. And so understanding each other, I do think the love languages are important, understanding the way each person gives love, so you can learn to see that, the love is there, even if it's not in the same way that you are giving it.
Yeah. And we've had that conversation before where I was really I really believe that if you love me, you'll just know how. That love is the expression of love is knowing how to love me. I shouldn't have to tell you how to love me. Right. I was really under that belief. I thought when I found the one, my soulmate, she would just know. Like she would know exactly what I want and what I need. As if, she got her hands on a manual.
She had a blueprint.
Yeah.
So Geneva, I have two questions for you. Based off what Tony just talked about this love thing and the people that you speak to in your practice, how do you view it? And my second question is, how can I ask this question best? How do you teach your boys to scale all of their emotions?
Say that last part again.
How do you teach your boys to embrace all of their emotions?
Okay. I did agree with the love languages. I do believe that a lot of people do show love the way that they would like to receive love. And I think that goes back with the communication. What I talk with my clients a lot about is speaking from an I statement all the time. It's like you said, Tony, I feel, I think, because people can't argue when you're saying, for me, this is what works for me. This is how I receive love. This is how I feel disrespected. This is the moments that I feel this way. They can't argue when you're saying it from I. They have to listen. They really do. And so that's what when I'm communicating with someone, female, male, anybody, I always try to come from a place of I, because I can speak for myself. And if I'm showing you my stuff, how I feel, how I'm thinking, then you can either match that or we can go separate ways, right? You can either understand it and we can move forward with it, or we can go separate ways. Now, as for my boys, my husband passed away. Their dad passed away about 4.5 years ago. And the only way I can show them how to work through their emotions is by doing it for them myself. So for me, it's just being open. We talk about it. My 10-year-old, he comes to me and he says when he's sad. My oldest, he tells me that we talk about everything. We're very close, and all I can do is lead by example. So I'm very open with how I feel about things. If I'm having a rough day, or if whatever the situation is, I'm just very open with it. And so I think by me being open with it, and I try to do the things where I'm like, okay, we're going to do some breathing, and they're silly, and I get mad, and because they won't stop laughing about it. But to be in the moment, we talk about being in the moment, how life is short. They just have a different perspective, and we talk about their perspective and how they're just different little boys, and how they have a perspective that a lot of kids their age doesn't have, and how that they can understand how short life is, and how it doesn't make sense to walk around bottling everything up, and to just voice their emotions, and come to talk to me about it. Because I'm over here emotional all the time. All my emotions are all over the place all the time. And so then we talk about it. And I try to be as open as I can. So I think just leading by example is the best way to communicate to your kids how to be open and secure in their own emotions.
All right. So I have one more question for both of you guys.
Before you ask that question, I just want to commend you on turning something so tragic into something that literally is life-changing.
Right.
To tell a child that this thing that happened, this thing that shouldn't have happened, this very sad thing that happened, there's a blessing on the other side of it, it's transformational. Because now they have a perspective of life that, you're right, most kids don't have that. As a matter of fact, to their detriment, they say that youth is wasted on the young, and it's because you believe you have time. But when time becomes finite, then all of a sudden you have a sense of urgency, right? That you just don't have when you're young, because I used to think 40 was old. And so I just commend you on and the level of emotional intelligence these young men are going to have as a result of your ability to display your emotions, and more importantly, allow them to. And even those breathing exercises, they may laugh at it now, but I guarantee you 20, 25 years old, they're going to be in their living room. Because more is caught than taught, and not everything we are taught we need at the time that we're taught it, right? But at some point, you're going to say, I'm glad someone taught me that. I'm glad someone gave that to me, and it's in my toolbox. So just bravo to you for that. I just wanted to say that. Sorry, Tony, go ahead.
Absolutely. So my question is for both of you guys, since you guys are both practicing therapists. If you have a couples therapy and you realize, or just a one-on-one therapy, and you realize the male does not have the capacity to explore all of his emotions, how do you get them to understand there's more emotions that he can express outside of happy, sad, and rage?
Well, I guess for me, so I'm in the process of studying drama therapy because I'm also a trained actress as well too. And so I'm trying to unify those two things. So I love drama therapy because in one regard, it teaches us to be playful again and be youthful again. And I think as adults, especially adult men, especially adult Black men, we forget that we can be joyful, we can play, we can be imaginative. Just a side note, I saw a TikTok the other day of Black men frolicking. It was probably the most joyful thing I had seen in a long time, that I sent it to every person in my circle. It just was so beautiful. So, in drama therapy, we use a lot of theater games and theater tools to get people comfortable, to get them comfortable in their own bodies, to get them comfortable feeling different emotions. And they don't, with doing acting, it's you can learn and see different emotions without immediately approaching what emotions might exist inside of you. So that's important with drama therapy as part of the warm up and getting people warmed up to the idea of their own emotions. So I like using those kind of techniques, with my patients to kind of warm them up to feelings before we start tackling what are some of their own underlying feelings and emotions, and just letting people know that it is okay. So often we're running from our emotions, we're running from our feelings. It's okay to feel pain. It's okay to feel sadness. It's okay to feel frustrated. It's okay to be angry and agitated. It's how you express it. It's how you cope with it. And a lot of times we run from emotion. So just getting people to feel comfortable sitting in discomfort is something that I work a lot on in the beginning as well too.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think when I'm sitting with a client, and it can be male or female, but when they're expressing some traumatic event that happened in their life and then they laugh about it, or they're stone-faced, or there's no emotion, I'll ask them. I'm just like, you just told me this horrible thing happened in your life and you laughed about it. I didn't think it was funny, and I'm just, and I'm real with them. We just have a conversation, and I'm like, well, what's, what is going on? What is the laughter about? Or, we just, and we try to find the, like she said, the comfort in the discomfort, and by talking through it, and really, and sometimes they've never had someone reflect back an inappropriate emotion to an event, right? So being able to be that person to see them in that moment, a lot of times the laughter stops and they're shocked, and it gives them the moment to really think about, I might feel this or that. And if I have to, I will pull out my feelings wheel, And we will talk about the different, look at all these emotions you could feel. You're in this triangle maybe for this. Let's talk about what other emotions we have that could be. And it's just exploration. It's
Right.
and I love drama therapy. It's exploration of the possibilities of what this could have done, and then realizing how it's affected so many areas of their life, and the awakening that provides for them by just exploring.
Awesome. Because I also did some acting and drama, and I was part of it's called the Full Circle. And what we did was she provided a space where we can do poetry, have the poetry be acting, and the coach Julisi, amazing. He would get you to a space and be like, that emotion you feel right now, I need you to sit in it. Just sit right there in it. And it was uncomfortable and it was ugly, but he made you sit in it. And then what that did for me was it made me realize there was a slew of emotions that I had no idea what I was dealing with. And we resort to anger because we don't understand what this feels like. We don't like it. I can't articulate what this is. So we get angry with it. So I appreciate the fact that you guys can recognize that and then let people know which direction they need to go. Because you're right, some women have not been taught as well how to deal with their emotions because they grow up in these stern families where they have to be either protect themselves because they've gone through so much trauma of abuse and no one being there for them, so they have to lock themselves into this. I got to survive by myself, and then you have the men who don't cry, don't do this, don't do that, and this is all you can show. So I appreciate the fact that you guys can both identify that.
And to provide the space for someone to sit in that discomfort and let them know that this doesn't scare me. I'm here with you. I see you, I'm here with you.
Right.
It's not only an amazing event, but it's an honor. Like I find it an honor to sit with someone as they realize the discomfort they've been hiding and pushing down that's causing all these other ailments. You know what I mean? It's like it just gives this peace and just the room to grow and to allow them to go deeper in their feelings. Yeah.
And I'm with you 100% that I would definitely give everybody therapy. I think therapy should be, and I tell people this all the time, if you go see the doctor once a year for a physical checkup, you need to see the doctor once a year, at least 5 sessions for a mental check-in, just to make sure, just to get some stuff off your chest, because we're holding so much stuff in. And I'll just land my plane right here. And especially as a Christian and what I see in the church, there is the love that we're supposed to express. We can't. Some of us can't because we're holding so much childhood trauma and things that happened to us that we haven't released yet. So now we're taking it out on the world when the Bible tells us to love. The 2 greatest commandments: love God with all your heart, mind, and soul. And the second commandment is to love your neighbor as yourself. If I don't know how to love myself, I can't do either one of those things. So, I appreciate you guys helping people through that.
I appreciate just the idea that there are more emotions than happy, sad, and angry. There's just this array of emotions that those 3 just don't capture. Like, I remember when I first learned the difference between sad and melancholy,
right?
And how one was a feeling of, you can be sad over something, right? Sad over a loss, sad over whatever. But to be melancholy is to be deep in sadness, to be encompassed by it, to not depressed per se, but to just be surrounded by it. Almost like it's a gloomy day, right? There is no break in the sunshine. And so for someone to say, well, you look sad, I'm not sad. You know what I mean? That's not heavy enough because I'm really, you know what I mean? And I'm scared of the word depressed because of the clinical, connotation that's attached to it. So for me, in my darkest times, especially dealing with PTSD, melancholy worked. And on the flip side, there's, elation versus happiness. If I'm elated, that's a very different emotion than just being happy. So especially for Black men, we just don't. It's like we're coloring with 3 crayons. Black, white, and gray.
And one of them are broken.
And one of them are broken, right? And then we meet a woman who has 64 colors, and it's like, oh my God. And then she asks, how do you feel? And none of my crayons really adequate. I'm not angry. I'm getting angry because I can't put words to my emotions. I'm not happy because I don't like the way this feels. I'm not sad because sad seems like I'm a child. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
My parents are from Jamaica, and there's an emotion called away. I feel away. And so, and that's when I still use when people, I just feel away. And it's interesting how when there wasn't, a word to express it, they came up with this expression to express it. Because
I love that.
When you feel away, but, I can't translate it into, English, but. Yeah.
And that's a great point. And there are other languages that have these words that describe, come see, come sta. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's just, I'm good. Whatever.
Emotional language is very
important.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I got another video I want to show, and we were talking about how love is given and received. I don't know how you guys are going to take this video. Because this is about a really hot topic lately, and that's submission, right? I don't know if submission is being described in this video per se, or something else, but I'll let the video speak for itself. So. That's a good point. Let me show this right here. So Love Tucker says, every doctor visit I have now, they give a mental health question at the beginning of the session. It's very interesting. That's a good point. Mm-hmm. As someone who worked in medicine, I was in medicine when I was in the Navy. That your disposition is a part of this, your how you present has a huge role in your prognosis and even your diagnosis, right? We'd have patients come in and they say, how would you rate your pain 1 out of 10? 10 being the worst pain you've ever felt in your life. It's a 10. But their blood pressure is normal, their pulse is normal, their breathing is normal. But then it's so subjective, you can't say, well, no, it's not a 10. Because for them, it could be. Mm-hmm. But if you start asking mental health questions, how do you feel? Not your physical pain, but where's your head at? Then that may help better understand why the pain is being rated so high. So that's a great point, Love Talk. All right, let me show this video real quick.
What does a submissive woman do for her man?
Everything.
What does that mean?
Like packing his bag, unpacking his bag, just making sure all the things that he wants. And I pretty much read his mind. So it's like, if I know you and I study you, like I know how you are in the morning, I know how you are about midday, I know when you're in this mood, what you need. Like before you can ever ask me for something, I'm already on it. I mean, he's spoiled. And when I talk to my girlfriends about it, I was like, oh, how are you guys doing? And I'm just like, girl, he's rotten. I'm like, he's spoiled rotten. Like, he's rotten. But I love that. Like, I want him to be that. I think my biggest flex is how I treat my man. And I've been known to love people back to health. And sometimes it's very draining, but my love is my superpower. And I used to hate that about myself. But now it's like, I'm just embracing it. Like, that's who I am. Like, if I love you, I can heal you.
It's your joy.
It is my joy. I love to see him eating the meal that I cooked. I love seeing him sleep easy. Every night, like clockwork, I scratch this man's back to sleep. And I know when he's asleep because I can tell when his breathing changes. And some people might think that's psychotic, but that's like I just know that's when I'm like, oh, I can stop now. But I find joy in being your rest, you know? So know what that means. And that works for us because he wants what I have to offer.
What are you getting from all that you're giving? What are you asking for in return?
Thoughts?
Really?
I mean,
Fire away.
that was interesting. That was interesting. Yeah, that's the word I was going to use. That was interesting. I mean, I think for me, a lot of what she was saying about pouring into her man, I think in relationships you're supposed to pour into each other. So, you know, I can't help you unless my oxygen mask is on, right? You know, so for me, a relationship is a dynamic. It's not a one-way street. We're pouring into each other. So I don't necessarily view submission in the way she's describing it, because for me, she's describing what seems like a one-way relationship. I mean, if you only get your joy from somebody else's joy, then for me, that's a problem, because you need to have your own peace and your own joy as well too. So that to me is a deficit that, you know, maybe she needs to explore. No offense, I could be wrong, but that's the way that I would see that. I don't see that as submission, or what I would describe as somebody who's submissive in a relationship. And packing and unpacking a bag, I mean, mother versus partner, I don't know. Are we blurring the line here? I don't know.
It would have been interesting to hear what his role in her life is.
Yeah.
I'm sure he must. For that, I think if it's, because I agree, you have to pour into each other. But my question for her would be like, well, what if you don't love them back to health? Like, what is that? What do you start telling yourself about that? Like, how are you internalizing that when you can't love someone back to health? Because that's not really your responsibility in life.
That's your responsibility.
I would be very concerned as well. I'd be like, well, we need to do some work here.
Yeah. I love my partner, but I want you to love yourself back to health.
Yeah.
I want you to have that skill and that ability.
Right. Don't depend on me to do it, because that's too much.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect answers. Because when I first saw the video, I was like, okay, kind of makes sense. But then I was like, what are you getting? Like, when is enough enough? When are you tired and you don't feel like rubbing that back that night? When have you had a horrible day and something, you know, a child, a friend has dumped on you all of their terrible emotions and trauma, and now you have to go do this thing for this person because you do it all the time because you're trying to love them back to health. Who's loving you back to health? Right. So I think at some point, I can appreciate where she's coming from, but at some point, if she's not getting that reciprocated, if she's not having that space to open her wings and be able to be just tired and just to not want to do something, right? Because what raised the red flag for me is when she said he's spoiled. My children are spoiled, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can spoil each other, but I should be the only one who's spoiled. If she said, yes, we spoil each other, then I would have been like, okay, that's great. Like when she said that works for us, I'm like, no, that works for him. So I really need to go find the video and listen to the rest of it, because I want to hear what she had to say when she asked that important question. What do you get out of all of this? Because all I kept hearing in my head going, reciprocation. And I didn't hear any of that.
And it's almost not even about reciprocation for me either. It's like, what do you do for yourself? Is there anything that you're doing to fill your own cup? Because it has to start with ourselves, right? Like, we can't expect even him to come back and fill. Somebody has to be filling her, and it should be herself or herself.
Right.
But I do think the submission conversation is an interesting one. And I think, you know, every woman is different in what they want to do for their partner and how they want to treat them and how they choose to submit. But I think the most interesting conversation I've had about this idea of submission recently is, you know, there's this larger conversation of men saying women don't submit anymore. But then the larger question that women have is, show me a man I can submit to.
Yes.
So And to each their own. If a woman wants to be submissive, that's fine, but show me a man I can submit to.
You gotta feel safe to submit.
Right.
You gotta safe to submit. Yes.
And it's so interesting to me that people who talk about they call it conditional submission.
Right.
This idea that I'm not going to submit unless you prove yourself worthy of my submission. That makes sense to me, because if you're submitting to every man that you meet, then that's not smart, because you know what I mean? That's there has to be some protective coding that we all have a responsibility to have over ourselves, right? And so to me, when you prove yourself worthy, that's when submission takes place, not just for the woman, but for the man as well, because I think submission is a two-way street. I'm alone. I'm in the minority in that thought process, but I've said that. Well, I mean, I'm talking about manosphere and all that stuff, because we submit to the relationship.
Right.
That is the if there is a hierarchy in my house, it's God, the relationship, and then us. And so for me, hearing this woman talk about all the things that she does for this man, one, I don't need you to do all that. I can unpack my own bag. I can pack my bag. There's a lot of things that you're doing that I can do for myself. And I feel like you're infantilizing me by doing all this stuff for me. I don't need you to cut the crust off my bread. I don't need you to rub my back until I mean, that sounds like an infant. That sounds like that's what baby, you have to do that to babies. So what I hear is you are with someone who does not have the ability to self-soothe, right? So what happens when you have to go on vacation, or you have to go away for work, or whatever? You have left this grown man child that you've created, that you maybe not created, but you are definitely supporting. And what's going to happen when you come back? Is the house going to be on fire? Like, you know what I mean?
He's going to be tired.
Right. Is he going to be overly tired because no one's rubbed my back?
Can't go to sleep.
I haven't slept in 3 days because nobody rubbed my and I think that when a man hears all that she's doing, it sounds great if that's what you're accustomed to. And unfortunately, we have a lot of people who are looking for their parents, right? Even I hear women say it all the time. I need a woman I need a man that's gonna be like my dad. Okay, that's unfair. You know what I mean? One, no one's going to love you like your father loves you, because that love is truly unconditional. He made you. He's almost obligated to love you despite all of your flaws, But I didn't. I had nothing to do with you being in this world. I volunteered to be in this relationship with you, but I'm not gonna, and I'm not going to get the same level of grace that your father does. Just like you're not going to get the same level of grace as my mother does. It doesn't happen that way. Now, there could be characteristics that your father displays that you may, want in a man, but the treatment and the way we deal with each other should not be based on a a parent-child relationship. And that's what that sounded like to me. That goes even beyond catering to a man. Or the idea that I'm a amateur chef. So I get the idea of feeling joy when people are enjoying my food, but that's a vanity thing, because that just means I cook well. But I'm not looking over the people who are eating my food, feeling myself with joy because they're being nourished or whatever the case may be. If I want them to say, "This is good, Tony. Oh, thank you so much." That's where the joy comes from. You know what I mean? It's not, "Oh, they're not going to die of starvation because of me." You know what I mean? But that's how I felt with my son. I'm going to, if I got to, work until my knuckles are bleeding, I'm going to make sure my son eats. But I don't want to be treated that way. That sounds horrible. And it sounds like I'm being treated like a child. Because if you're doing all this stuff for me, you have to have expectations. And that's the part we don't talk about. When it comes to reciprocation, I'm sure he's going to have to go just as hard in the paint as she does. And are you willing to give at the level that you're receiving? And if she doesn't make you give to the level that you're receiving, do you really want to be in that relationship? Because it's one-sided. You're not. The other part, and I'll land here. There's a element that every relationship needs, in my opinion. And I used to think that the presence of this thing was an indicator that the relationship was no good. But the reality is that having this thing in a relationship and being able to deal with it maturely actually enhances the relationship, and that's conflict. Conflict is really a great thing to have in a relationship, because that means I am not with someone who lacks the ability to have an opinion that's different than mine, who lacks the ability to challenge opinions that I have because I could be wrong.
Right.
You know, I'm always talking about how my wife is brilliant when it comes to money. If we had no conflict at the beginning of our relationship about who's going to deal with the money, and I just said, you know, you just deal with it, I won't do anything. I didn't have an opinion about it. Now it becomes her burden as opposed to, you know, her responsibility, because I'm not even involved. You know what I mean? Dealing with conflict in a mature way and not making it task conflict and not personal. That to me is the key. But when you have no conflict, like when people say we never argue, oof, that means somebody lying. That's horrible. And of course, the opposite, you know, we argue all the time, then that means you can't communicate, you know. But there should be some conflict. I'll end there.
I was going to say, you know, it almost seems like she has tried to embody what she believes is a man's fantasy of the perfect submissive woman, and that she finds her self-validation through that. And that's also problematic if that's the only way you can feel validated is by living up to this fantasy. But also what you said earlier about, you know, both people being submissive in a relationship. And I've said this before when, you know, people have said, well, the man is supposed to lead. And I said, the man is supposed to lead, but there's going to be times where I need to lead. And I want to be with a man who knows that if I need to go in the driver's seat, I'm going to be capable and competent enough to lead us if you need me to lead. And for the example you gave with your wife being really great with money, right? So there's going to be different times when people lead in the relationship. And I wouldn't want to be with somebody who just wanted me to be a sheep and a follower. I want you to know that I am on your level and capable and confident. You can lead, sure, but I want you to have the comfort of knowing that I can lead too, because there will be times in a relationship where the other partner needs to step up in one way or another and take the wheel.
But I think that's a trait of leadership. Yielding to the expertise of the people on your team is leadership. You know, I think the greatest leaders are the people that surround themselves with brilliant people and then yield to their expertise. Again, I have an English degree. You know, I have a Bachelor of Arts degree, which is not even worth the paper it's written on. I studied Shakespeare in college. My wife has a master's degree in finance. Why the heck? I don't even know where our accounts are. Like, and I shouldn't, because you know, all I can do is quote Macbeth. She knows all this other stuff that we actually need, you know. And so yielding to her expertise and not allowing her, but insisting that she drives is, in my mind, leadership, because I know we're going to get there. And I'm lucky enough to have someone who's not going to throw that in my face, you know, who's not going. And to me, that's another part of submission, is not reminding you of the times where I had to lead, you know, because you were inadequate or you were inept, you know. But that's where partnership comes into play. And I think the best marriages are collaborative. You know, it's not about who's in charge. Who cares? I mean, what is the hierarchy for? I don't get it. You know, at the end of the day, who are you reporting to? You know, as long as you're on the same page, it doesn't matter. Now, when it comes to kids, that's different. You don't want the whole, well, you know, mom said I couldn't have cookies and you're the man of the house.
I'll add that that's kind of what the relationship is, because you don't want to always have to do everything. You want to share the responsibilities, but you also want to trust that your partner can handle it, and you can trust that they know the direction you want your family to go in. And I think that that's where the submission on both halves come in, and the comfort behind it, because you feel like he's got my back. He's going to make sure he's taking care of me and our family and getting us down the road when we need to, and vice versa. So that's the whole point of having a relationship. That's the beauty of the relationship, because doing it by yourself, like I'm doing now with the 3 boys, it's like I missed my other half when we balanced it all together. But that's the point of having the other half, is that you can do it together and balance it out.
That's a great point. Yeah. And the idea that I can do something alone doesn't necessarily equate to I want to.
Exactly.
But it also means that I can be selective of who I do it with, because I'm not in a state of need. Meaning, if you leave, I will still survive. I can do bad all by myself. It is possible. When there was a time in the not too distant past where it was impossible to do it alone, because women couldn't own property. You couldn't, open a bank account without a husband. You couldn't, you know what I mean? And so we can't conflate what that means when a woman says, well, I don't need a man. That's not her saying I don't want one. It's saying that I can be selective about the one that I get, because he's not required. You know what I mean? And I think that's a very important context.
Well, it's also you do have to be selective, because in my situation, it's like, what if he had married someone that couldn't continue on and couldn't, you know what I mean? So when you're selecting someone to build a family with, make sure this person is someone that you know will continue on no matter what happens. Trust them, and you know that they'll be able to continue on. So it's not an easy selection process. It has to be something that you know what you need and know how to handle it and continue to go forward.
Yeah. Well, we are at 1.5 hours. Time flew by. This was great. We want to thank you ladies for joining us for Ladies Night on the Real Shop Talk. Again, this is our first episode of the 2nd season. Thank you to everyone who hung in with us, everyone who dropped comments. We really appreciate it. So one more time, I want to give each of you an opportunity to shout out your social medias. Let us know where we can find you. And again, thank you on behalf of all of the men of Real Shop Talk. Thank you for joining us. You guys really make this a very special event. Thank you for being open with your opinions as well. And we'll start with Elizabeth.
Yes, thank you so much for having us. This is fun. I'm on Instagram. You can find me Elizabeth Ann Hilton. Hylton is how the last name is spelled. And if you'd like to check out my poetry page, it's Ellie Hilton on Instagram. ELLIEHYLTON.
Awesome. Geneva?
My social media is My Victorious Walk on IG. My husband's name was Victor, and that kind of just a little tribute to him. I put inspiration out there and things like that, so I can be reached on there.
Awesome. Is there a specific audience that you target with your inspiration, or anyone?
I would say anyone, but I kind of tend to do maybe more women, tailored to maybe more widows. I'm kind of getting away from it. It's been about 4.5 years now, and I want to broaden it a little bit. So, but just inspiration, quotes, scripture. It's a little bit of everything.
Awesome.
TikTok.
So you want to be inspired? Check them out. Mr. Watts, you got anything coming up?
No, I've decided this week actually is to continue running some repeat episodes. I'm going to do some pop-in lives. I'll come back full-fledged in August. There's a lot of things I got in my head that I need to map out. I actually have the August schedule that I intend on doing already mapped out. I'm going to have, if these ladies don't mind, I will be inviting them for my September because you guys are awesome. You guys are incredible. And I do a series called What Trauma Does to the Body, and I would like to get you guys' opinion so we can come on and have that conversation.
That's my jam.
Nice, let's go.
So I have something special that I'm working on right now behind the scenes. I have a book called A Man's Guide to a Successful Affair. And the title has been so off-putting for people that some people just won't read the book. So I decided I would make a companion podcast about the book. And so each episode of the podcast is a chapter of the book. And rather than me go at it alone, I found two young ladies who are dynamic, opinionated. They are amazing. Adriana Thomas and Akila Smith. I cannot wait to introduce the world to them. I'm going to do it right here on our show. We are in production right now, working on knocking out the episodes. The idea is that you buy the book either on Amazon.com or Audible, and you read a chapter and then you listen to the podcast that coincides with that chapter. So it's almost like attending a book club. It's really fun. I mean, the hardest part is keeping the episodes to 1 hour, because they are again, they're not holding back. If I say something, they're like, that's dumb, and here's why. So I'm really excited about this. We are still working on a launch date. Once we do, we will make sure we have some fanfare and make sure everyone has an opportunity to get their hands on the book and join us as we go through the book. And I think what you'll find just with the podcast, if the book turns you off, if you listen to the one episode of the podcast, I think you will understand the point of the book, and you might even go download it or even pick up a copy. It definitely isn't how to have an affair. Essentially, what I do in the book is expose why affairs cannot be successful. And here's all the reasons why. And so through the podcast, we definitely talk about each reason. And again, a lot of fun putting it together. Can't wait to share it with you. And again, we're going to bring the ladies here on the show and introduce the world to them. And then we'll let you know when it drops. So again, on behalf of the men of the Real Shop Talk, we just want to thank you guys so much for rocking with us. I hope you enjoyed those episodes that we put out there. Each one was curated by one of the guys from the show. We wanted to not just show reruns, but we wanted to show the shows that we really felt made a big impact. So we hope that you enjoyed that. Make sure you join us next week, Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern. We will be here. A couple of more of us will be here, and we're going to have a great time like we always do. So again, thank you guys so much for showing up for us. And
do you want to tell the topic is going to be for next week?
Oh, go ahead.
So the topic next week is why I want to get married. From a black man's perspective.
That's going to be a good one. So make sure you tune in. Why do I want to get married? That's going to be scary. All right, we'll see you guys next time. Huh?
No women on for that one, huh?
No.
No.
Okay.
It will go from why do I want to get married to why do you want to marry me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Have a great night.
Thank you.